Hey, this is Tiqqle, and in this video we're going over Elemental Shaman Honor Talents. Now you might ask yourself, why are we talking about this, Tiqqle? The expansion's already out, but if you were not paying attention during BlizzCon, there was about a 10-second clip, which I'll play right now, that pretty much highlights that they are going to be reworking Honor Talents. This is one of the #1 things I had hoped and prayed for the PvP scene going into Shadowlands, which Blizzard didn't do. They didn't change any of the Honor Talents, and Honor Talents have been pretty much exactly the same for BFA and into Shadowlands, unfortunately, because that is a huge component of how to shake things up. Now, what they said is basically the following.
Looking for is an Honor Talent refresh. The idea here is to take a look at some of our unused or underutilized Honor Talents and freshen them up a bit, change things around in terms of the PvP metagame.
So with that being said, what we're going to do in this video is we're going to go over the existing Honor Talents, then we're going to go over some of the suggestions that you guys have put forward. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Check the timestamps down below in case you're curious of the different sections. And on your way down there, I know 75% of you haven't subbed to the channel yet. Hit that sub button, hit that like button, and let's keep going. All right, let's get into the game. Let's go ahead and look at the Honor Talents. We'll go through them quickly. If you're not familiar with Ellie, this will be an a review for you. But in general, the challenge and the issue that they're trying to address is the following. Every arena game, as an Ellie Shaman, you're taking Grounding Totem, Sky Fury, Lightning Lasso. There's a few times you'll switch. A few times you might switch out Grounding if there's no reason for it. If it's like Warrior, Windwalker, Paladin, but even then, there's a chance. So you would always take it. Grounding Totem is so critical, you basically always need to have it. Now, you might drop Sky Fury for Spectral Recovery, for going Zoom Zoom, but otherwise, this is basically what you always take every time. Now, in my opinion, two things could potentially change Blizzard, is making Grounding Totem and Sky Fury baseline. Sky Fury, I don't see this being possible, but now that I played a bit more of TBC, Burning Crusade Classic, dude, Ellie's used to have this utility. It wasn't Sky Fury back then, but it was utility that gave some hit and crit to your party. And that's a raid utility that Ellie Shaman, I think, really needs to bring to the table to make them be a centerpiece in raids. Otherwise, they don't really have much utility. But that being said, obviously these have incredible value, Lasso, Sky Fury, Grounding Totem. But let's look at the other ones, because as they mentioned, they're looking for ones that are less used. And frankly, these are all less used. I will mention the situations you might want to use them, but in general, none of these are ever taken, other than these three, legit, maybe Spectral Recovery. So Elemental Attunement increases your max Maelstrom by 50. And guys, we'll talk about the ideas that you have already put together and put in the Discord. Some of them are incredibly creative of changing these, and some of them are awesome for new ideas. So again, we'll get to that section next. But Elemental Attunement, the reason why this is such a big challenge, and the reason I'm making this video, is I want to give my feedback to Blizzard as well, and get your feedback down in the comments or in Discord. This is one that is not viable. Increases your max Maelstrom by 50. The reality is this, generating Maelstrom is more or less a challenge in Arena and in PvP. Specifically arenas, I'm going to be focusing on my feedback. In World PvP and random BGs, it's really, you could make this happen, but frankly, it's like, it's not going to be that big of a deal, especially with putting things together with like Stormkeeper and other abilities. So frankly, this is increasing your Maelstrom to 150 doesn't really have a place. It has more of a place now that Earthshock is actually doing decent damage. That means if you got 150 Maelstrom, you could do 2 Earthshocks back to back, which would be good, especially with an Echoing Shock. I have a video about that. But I don't think it's really viable, and generating the Maelstrom is the challenge, not the max Maelstrom, the generation aspect. Keep that in mind for later. Now, so this is one that is never, ever taken. I haven't seen people take this since Legion. Now, Control of Lava, this was reworked in a few ways, but it's still just not there. Flame Shock damage increased by 30%. Your Flame Shock damage over time has a 10% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Lava Burst and increase its damage by 15%. Now, frankly, I would love to see some creativity being used here by maybe throwing this with playing with an Affliction Warlock, so your Flame Shock damage is truly doing a lot using the Flame Shock Legendary. We'll be messing around with that in future videos, but I think that something cheeky might be viable, using this in random battlegrounds, maybe rated battlegrounds, maybe but it's really for the memes. And taking away that instant cast lava burst is just sad, sad, sad. So no one is taking this. Traveling storms. This actually is taken in some circumstances if you get either storm raided battlegrounds, or you can go against potentially windwalkers and other melee cleaves to knock people away. And honestly, getting it down to a 30-second cooldown is not too shabby, especially against those Fist of Fury windwalkers. So this is taken sometimes, but almost. I mean, when I say sometimes, 1%. 2% of the time. So this is generally created. I mean, I would really like to see this come into play because knockback is kind of one of the things that brought me to LA Shaman back in Wrath of the Lich King and keeps people around for it, is kind of the meme factor of that. So they can make this a little bit more impactful, maybe a knock and like a stun or something. I think it would be a little bit better. Now, Spectral Recovery, this is the one that I did mention, is good. This is while in Ghostwolf, you heal 3% health for 2 seconds. Now, that's not why it's good. It's good because it increases the movement speed of Ghostwolf by an additional 10%. That means while you're in Ghostwolf, not only are you moving at at increased speed of 30%, but it's actually going to be 40%. It's going to be bumped up so that you're never going to be able to be slowed, first of all, below 100%, and then that is now raised by 10%. It makes you basically a motorcycle, and especially stacking it with Spirit Wolf is very good against melee cleaves. Now, I will say this. I honestly think that kiting and mobility is one of the skill caps of LA Shamans. Probably one of the hardest things about LA Shamans for beginners or people that are trying to learn the class as well. I think this is something that they could rework. As much as I like the 10%, I would love to see this change into something like a dash or a gust of wind, perhaps, that pushes you through the air like we used to have in Legion. Now, there's a few other tips, but we'll get to that later. The next one's counter, but anyway, this one can be viable into melee cleaves, but honestly, usually never taken. And honestly, how much it's utilized is such a small percentage, even in those games. And it's not going to make you win; it's just going to make you move. Now, the next one, Counter-Strike Totem. We all know this one. It's kind of a meme, right? Some people will take it, but it's never really a game decider realistically after a certain rating. People are aware of it. They're on the lookout in case it happens, and they just stop damaging, kill it, go back to work. You know, it's a deterrent for about one global. It is what it is. It reflects damage. Now, the next one, Purifying Waters. These used to be, I feel like this used to be decent back in BFA or in the much slower metas. I think if like all of a sudden we have Frost Mages again, we have our Druids again all over with, you know, maybe it'll be okay. But frankly, the Purge, I mean, it's just getting healed for 3% of your health for purging isn't even that good. Really, you want to purge to get those heals off or whatever. The healing aspect of this is really not insane. The 3% is nothing compared to casting one healing surge on yourself and also spending the mana. You know, you're spending big mana compared to just healing yourself if you wanted that 3% health. It's not that big of a deal. I'd rather see something like Purgecute or some pumped up version of it where if I purge, it does a ton of damage or a lot of damage so that they're scared to put up those things, or it's a deterrent in some manner. So it's a little bit harder of a counter and it utilizes the purge of an elemental shaman a little bit more efficiently. And I'm getting ahead of myself. But that's that. Now, Swelling Waves is taken sometimes. When you Healing Surge on yourself, you're healed for 50% of that amount 3 seconds later. This works really well with some of our defensive soul binds, and honestly, it's pretty good. It's honestly pretty good. If you're going to be spam healing yourself at any point in the game and you're going to be playing a little bit more defensively and you don't think you're going to be able to use Sky Fury effectively, then throw this up there. Throwing 1 or 2 heals on yourself will be massive. The hybrid healing of an LA Shaman is pretty insane, and specifically if you take this on yourself even more. There's conduits that buff it by 20% more. So it's actually pretty crazy. So that's pretty much it for the honor talents. There's not, as you can tell, there's not really much here. There's really some things that are doing, like if you look at the breakdown of this, really, right? You have a few healing options, right? The Spectral Recovery, Purifying Water, Swelling. Okay, Swelling is actually decent. You have some totem-based things like Counter-Strike Totem, Grounding Totem. Grounding Totem is actually insanely important. Counter-Strike's kind of a meme. You know, yes, there's nothing here to me that excites me. It's not bringing in the flame shocks. It's not making my proc chances higher for lava burst. It's not buffing my other schools of magic, like the original version of Elemental Equilibrium in Shadowlands Beta did. So there's a lot of things that Blizzard has actually had that they don't even need to invent new things that they could bring back. That'd be pretty exciting. But anyway, that's my review of the honor talents right now. To give feedback, let's go ahead and jump into what people have already given tips about in the Discord. These are awesome ideas. I gotta say, some of them I saw coming, some of them are extremely creative. I want to thank you. I'll do a follow-up video to this video once you guys have put in even more ideas, and I might even make a Google Doc so we can fit even more. But let's go ahead and run through these. Number one, Shamanistic Rage. I wasn't surprised to see this. These are, by the way, all the new ideas, and we'll talk about some changes after. Shamanistic Rage reduces all damage by 30% for 15 seconds, and it's able to be used while stunned. This is an OG ability. I cannot believe, actually, if I were to tell you that there was one thing people wanted for Shaman, it was one more defensive. Now, sure, Enhanced Shaman's got insane self heals, and it's very good, and I hope that they don't over nerf them when the time comes. But having another defensive cooldown is pretty huge, especially for stuns. Of course, you know, you get countered by stun classes. Everybody does. Everyone dies in stun. But this is something where Shamans have been susceptible and honestly known to be one of the swishiest classes in the game because of this. But frankly, luckily right now, there's a lot of peels and other teammate mechanics that can kind of compensate for this. But frankly, this is one that a lot of people have been looking for, is getting that second defensive cooldown and usable in stun, which is would be very strong. Now, here's additional suggestions, and remember, this is for honor talents. An honor talent that removes the cooldown of Flame Shock. This is huge because this was one of the most focused on feedback items to Blizzard. Take the cooldown off Flame Shock. Like give us something that does, or make something about, have some protection to Flame Shock. And the reason for that is, if you just, in PvP situations, if you just dispel Flame Shocks from every time they're applying Flame Shock, you actually negate Ellie's damage significantly. Not only does it make it so lava bursts potentially don't proc, it makes it so that they don't generate Maelstrom easily. They have to cast, which is a pain in the butt. It's also on the Nature School, which locks them out of a lot of other things, including Keels, Hex, grounding, a lot of different things. Now, the other thing I'll remind you about is in BFA to Shadowlands, they reduced the proc chance of lava bursts pretty significantly. We had a lot of testing of that in the beta, but frankly, that was one of the most, I would say, disliked change that's happened for Ellie Shamans in PvP since Gust of Wind was removed, and we'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, so something about Flame Shock really needs to go into those PvP talents. But you have to remember, you're going from such a strong position. If they add in any PvP talents, really what they have to think about is, when would I not take these three? And the answer right now is, you would never not take these three. You would always take them. And frankly, that is kind of sad. They're going to have to, I honestly think they need to make Grounding Totem baseline. I really think that they need to free up a spot. Grounding Totem baseline improves improves all Shaman, by the way, viability in every mode of everything. I mean, I'm talking raids, Mythic Plus. That will be incredibly powerful. So I think that would be huge for Shamans, especially for them to get invited to groups, variation in other forms of content. But frankly, if you need some powerful, PvP talents to pull this away, and even one that had no cooldown on Flame Shock, this is really tempting, but we have some pretty strong contenders there, especially with Lasso. I actually worry that Lasso's going to get nerfed, but anyway. Remove cooldown of Flame Shock, or some type of change to Flame Shock so that you can get it out more often. Or there's some type of reduction or protection on it. I think would be a really awesome one and would make people really happy. Now, I put this in here, remove Control Lava. I think that Control Lava being here, I think it's just taking up a spot. I think there's a bunch of these Purifying Waters, Control Lava. There's some of these that could get removed if you're going to bring this brand new. And I'm saying brand new because of this. I really think that things need to be taken to kind of, not an extreme side of things, but I want to see brand new, different, or bring back things that were, to really shake up the play style of these classes. The play style of these classes has not changed at all, really, since BFA. Now, sure, Echoing Shock's insane, but I mean the core of the core. It really hasn't changed that much. And I know a lot of people are going to say, dude, don't say that. But frankly, Lava Burst being back is huge. Earthshock now hitting hearts. We're actually in a great spot, but I would like some variation and some different viable builds. That's one of my biggest complaints about the current state of the game, and specifically for Shaman, is there's really one build. That's it. And I don't know how other classes are, but I see honor talents as a way to make variations depending on comps or depending on what build you want to play. And that brings me to another topic. If you guys don't remember, back in Legion, there used to be different sets of PvP talents. This is your PvP talent pane before. And there were things that would really change up your playstyle. For example, fire and ice. Fire and ice, I'll just, we also have it on the disc over here, right? Fire and Ice. Frost Shock now deals 20% additional damage. Flame Shock, periodic damage, generates 3 Maelstrom. What a very fun playstyle. It means you'll probably go Ice Fury. You get this combination of different abilities that on their own aren't strong enough, but together make a new playstyle. This will allow people to do different things. Take different talents for different builds. Maybe this is something where you're going to be going Ice Fury because you're going to be playing with, I don't know, Affliction Warlocks, so they're going to be slowed, so you won't need the second defensive. But being locked into Primal Elementalist and not being able to free up some other talents is not a good look. It's not a good way, I think, to have the variations of the class being able to be played. Before, I mean, in previous times, there's been multiple builds you could go depending on the comp. Changing up the playstyle, either based on your composition or the enemy composition, is very interesting and actually changes the gameplay in a really engaging way in my mind. And also gives you a lot more things to think about and contemplate. Now let's go ahead and go back to the other ones here. We'll hit some other ones that did used to exist. Now, Gust of Wind, if you didn't know Gust of Wind, this is where you would leap through the air, kind of like a blink, but you just jump through the air. This was the most fun ability for LA Shamans, and if they brought this back, they would instantly make so many people want to play this game. So many LA Shamans from forever want to come play. It was the most fun ability. I mean, it was just such an aggressive use. I mean, the people that used it the most aggressively, I mean, it was just a beautiful thing. Now I do hope that comes back. That will be a mobility, which is not really something that's in this, in our arsenal right now. And that could be huge against melee cleaves, etc. Some people say that LA Shamans already have a ton of mobility. Frankly, for the top tier, okay, all right. But honestly, for most people, they struggle a lot with it. Kiting, mobility, that's very tough. And I do think that that's somewhere that it doesn't even feel that rewarding when you play it differently. But I think Gust of Wind would really make people have more fun. Now, the next one was a lot of these were provided by people that have already given their ideas. We've talked about this on the stream. Earthshock applies Frost Shock. Interesting way to combo those together. Maybe save a global. Ranged Disarm. An interesting suggestion. That is, something that I hadn't even thought about, but having a disarm ability. Now, again, if you think about it, to counter melee trains and stuff like that, right? Now, this Electric Storm, casting Chain Lightning on a target affected by Flame Shock, spreads your Flame Shock to other enemies damaged by Chain Lightning. Really cool idea. Now, these are different ways. Again, spreading Flame Shock is a hot topic of Shaman across the specs, honestly. But it's about getting more Flame Shocks and being able to get more out so you get more procs. The proc nature of the class is where I fell in love with it, and I'm sure other people are too. Windrush Totem is now a spell channeled over 15 seconds that allows the caster and target to move 60% faster for 15 seconds. Casting Jetstream also applies Spirit Walker's Grace. I think they wanted this to be called Jetstream. And this is an interesting one as well. This is a PvP talent you could take that then would augment your Windrush Totem, making it turn from a PvP useless skill to becoming a really cool ability. Now, that's one of the things that Blizzard could do. They could just not, it could just be, something more than just a buff honor talent. It could make other things already here more exciting, more interesting, and that's actually an awesome suggestion. Never thought about that. Another one, Vanishing Spirit, gains stealth while in Ghost Wolf. Listen, I'm in. Amen. Now, I already mentioned Fire and Ice. Again, I want this because not only does it help people that maybe struggle a little bit generating Maelstrom, it helps make Ice Fury come back. Ice Fury needs to make a comeback. I personally think I put this here, Ice Fury buff, make Frost School hit a lot harder. Bring back Ice Fury. When you Ice Fury'd into Lava Burst and you got a chain of flying stuff that all of a sudden started repeating because of mastery, that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Now, this is one that was removed going into BFA, Earth Fury Legion. Casting Earthshock when you have 100 Maelstrom. Now, you used to be able to have more than 100 Maelstrom, but now you maxed out 100. And now Earthshock only costs 60. But anyway, casting Earthshock when you have at least 100 Maelstrom will stun the target for 2 seconds. Now, I think, again, leave Earthshock at 60 cost, but if you use Earthshock at capped Maelstrom at 100, it stuns them for 2 seconds. It was a very satisfying way to play. A lot of people didn't like it. It wasn't on Stun DR, but I think it was a really unique way that Ellie Shaman could be really disruptive, and that's what Ellie Shaman's always been about. Now, Ascendance, I think there needs to be a PvP talent that, again, could bring into the fold Ascendance. Ascendance buff, maybe change Control Lava into this. Ascendance, make Lava, so when you ascend, basically some way to buff Ascendance from your Honor talents. Make it so that when you Ascendance, make Lava Burst instant cast with no cooldown while in Ascendance. Because here's the thing, Ascendance is such a meme, you can shut it down in PvP so hard. They actually buffed it in a very exciting way, making it so that even now, when you Lava Burst, it will proc Lava Burst on other targets. I'm going to be taking that. Using the Legendary, by the way, Deeply Rooted, I'm going to be running Ellie with that in RBGs, and I will show you what it can do. But this is where you can get some exciting gameplay. And so, again, enabling your talents through your Honor talents and making it something where you don't have to worry about the PvE aspect of it. That's where it will actually add value to not only the Honor talent itself, but it will make the talents more important and fun to change up the builds. That's where I think Blizzard needs to go. Now, let's go over just 2 more. I know this is already turning into a longer video than I thought. Protection for our Flame Shacks, whether it removes the cooldown or when it's cleansed, it does damage to the target when it's cleared from. Honestly, this is actually huge. Like, for example, Shadow Priest. If a healer dispels a vampiric touch, they will get feared for 2 seconds, right? Why doesn't the same thing happen when you do that to Flame Shock? Set them on fire and run around in circles for 2 seconds, like a Dragon's Breath, except not on DR. Something like that would punish healers a little bit for dispelling those Flame Shocks, and is a no-brainer when it comes to the amount of impact that dispelling Flame Shock has on Ellie. The amount of hard counter of that is it's absolutely devastating, and it really makes the class hard. I mean, it just gimps them. I cannot even think of another. I'm trying to think of how you gimp a class harder, a caster, than Ellie Shaman's Dispelling Flame Shock, and I can't think of them. All I could say is interrupt-related things, but this isn't interrupt-related things. S-Priest VTs? No, because guess what? VT doesn't have a cooldown. Flame Shock does. That's the problem. So that's a big one, and I think that this one really would be huge, especially maybe enabling us to be more focused on dots. Reverberation, successfully grounding a spell, grants X Maelstrom. This is actually pretty cool. I think that this would go along, in my opinion, with grounding being baseline to a Shaman, but Reverberation would be kind of cool to have some effect happen when Grounding Totem does soak the spell, whether it does, I don't know, reverses it, buffs you, Maelstrom, etc. Now, some of the changes I had brought up was Control of Lava, basically removing the cooldown of Flame Shock, increasing the proc chance of Lava Burst. There's nothing that increases the proc chance of Lava Burst or modifies Flame Shock cooldown, which are the 2 biggest things that I would put on this list. I don't even have it up here for increases the proc chance of Lava Burst, but that used to be in Legion too. So I'm not saying go back to Legion. I'm just saying there were some things about Legion Ellie that made it, in my opinion, the best version of Ellie we've ever seen. Now, change the elemental attunement to have a Maelstrom. So this was another suggestion I had. Change elemental attunement. Instead of increasing the cap of Maelstrom by 50, which is like, why do I need to pool it? I don't want to be pooling, spending. It's globals. I want change elemental attunement to make my Maelstrom generate twice as fast. It is a way for me to, now I'm generating much quicker. I'm going to get some melee cleave. I can't just sit there and cast forever. You know, I'm only can get a few off. I need to make those more and more effective. So those are some tips that I have. So again, guys, make sure to join the Discord. Put your thoughts in here. I'll continue to collect them. I'll do a different video about when we start voting on this. But throw it in here, or put it, I would say put it in the comments as well if you don't want to go into the Discord. But throw it in there, give some tips, because I want to consolidate this for Blizzard and make a forum post and say how much effort and all of your guys' inputs is in one big post. So I want to thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. It was kind of a long one, but I hope you like some of these ideas about Elemental Shaman. Again, the keys are, let's shake things up. Let's give our PvP talents changing our gameplay as well as enabling our talents to actually shine and not just be one single build. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all the subs and the Patreons out there. Appreciate all the love and support. We will see you on stream every day, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I appreciate the love and see you in the next one, everybody. Oh yeah, check the links down below. We'll have Enhance and Resto Shaman coming right up for you.